Hi, I'm Susan, and today I want to show you these cute little fish ornaments. You can use them for all sorts of things. They're a great fun rainy day project, and sometimes they're just fun to play around. So let's get started. Now you can begin with a bullseye cane or a Skinner blend cane. Either way I think comes out really beautiful, so I'm going to do both ways. To create a bullseye, basically you're taking a center core and you are just wrapping it with multiple colors of clay. And here I'll show you how I put the last color on this cane. I'm just taking this cherry red and I'm trimming it on the sides pretty close. Cut off the end and just wrap it around. Now if you touch the clay to the clay, it will leave a little registration mark. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera. And it just shows you where to cut pretty much, so that you get a nice perfect butt meeting of clay. Now I just like to trim this top off. Here, I'll cut it straight so you can see all the colors better. And you can see how I have this beautiful bullseye type of a look. Now when I reduce this, you will lose all of those air bubbles and you will get a completely different effect. So let's move on to making the blended cane. Now to create our blended cane, I'm just taking a strip of every color, placing them next to each other. I'm going to fold it over onto itself, and I will run it through the pasta machine about 15 times so these colors slowly blend together, and I'll be right back. Well, I'm back, and you can see how pretty that blended together and gave us a nice subtle gradation, unlike the bullseye cane. But when you see this reduced, you may say, I'm not sure this is worth the extra time, so that's why I'm showing you the different ways. Now I'm just folding this on itself so I can make a long strip. And I will run this through the pasta machine with this end going in first, so I come back with a long strip. And now you see I have that nice long strip just by running it through that way, and I ran it through on a number 1. And I'm just going to roll this up so that I have the same color gradation that I have in this bullseye cane. I want you to see the difference and make your own decision whether it's worth your time or not. Now see where it's all ruffly here? Don't worry about that. It'll blend together when we reduce it. Some people would get upset. Some clays just, no matter how much you condition them, they do that funny crack thing. Sometimes I think it's cool, but on a cane it's more annoying. Now we're just going to reduce these, and I will continue reducing them and come back. Well, I'm back, and this is the bullseye cane over here, and this was the blended cane over here. So you can see the blended one is just a little bit more subtle, but we're not done reducing, so they're going to be very similar. You're going to be surprised, and that's why I wanted to show you the two differences. Now, of course, this is my time where I have to add a little bit gold. I've cut 2 pieces of each one. I left one slightly larger and one slightly smaller. The smaller one is going to be for the scales that are on the fish, and the larger one is going to be for the fins. So for the scales, I want to cover these with some gold leaf, my trademark. And I'm just wrapping these canes in leaf so that when they reduce, you'll get this beautiful little sparkle on the edges. And the neat thing about the gold leaf, it magically sticks to the clay, so no problem with it flying anywhere or any messes. Now I will continue to reduce this to approximately 8 millimeters, or a little smaller than a number 2 pencil, if that helps. But it really depends on the size of your fish, how big you're going to want these little scales to be. So you may want them a little larger, a little smaller. Do what suits you best. Now for the fins, we're going to take the larger pieces, and I'm going to reduce them down and cut them into 3 pieces. So whatever is a comfortable size for you to work with. I like to press it against the table and get more of an oblong size for this rather than a circle. Let me see if I pinch that so it's more like that. I just find that easier to reduce. But whatever makes it easier for you, everybody has a different preference on reducing and what is difficult for them and what is easier for them. When you're working with pieces that are larger, sometimes people like different shapes. They like to reduce them more up front, whatever is more comfortable for you. But the technique, either way, will work the same. I'm going to cut this now into thirds. You could measure this if you like. Now, see this doesn't match? Just pull it. And reduce this down once again. Now, I find the easiest way to reduce this is just using the table. You may find it easier to hold it in your hands. That's why I say everybody has a different technique of what's comfortable for them. Now, once you get it large enough, you can cut it in half and then add it again. And this we're going to use for the fins on the fish. So I don't want to reduce them too much because I may lose some of the colors and it may become a little muddy. But I'm going to add some gold leaf at this point before I continue to reduce any further. So I have that nice little sparkle on the edge. Now if you have a little spot like that, just take the stuff that's extra on the bottom and fill it in. And now continue to reduce this to the approximate size you want. You may want to leave this a little larger until you form your fish and decide maybe you know exactly what the size is for your fins. But I just want to push this gold leaf in, and when I cut it for you, you'll see what I mean of how pretty that looks as a little fish fin. And I don't want this perfectly formed. I like this unevenness on one side. I'm intentionally leaving that so that when you put it on your fish, it has a more natural and organic look. Now I will reduce this other cane so that you can see the difference. Now to begin creating a little fish, I want a larger fish than I normally would, and clay is very expensive, so I don't want to just make it all with clay. I prefer to take a piece of foil and use this as the base. And I like to kind of create it as the shape of a fish body, and you can squish it however you like, but make sure it's pretty tight, because once you start to play on this, you don't want it to squish in when you're pushing your clay on it. You want it to be pretty full. And I'm just going to take this orange clay because I think this will look really pretty with my fish. You can use any color that makes you happy. This is about making you happy. This is not a particular color that you have to have. This does not have to be rolled out on the pasta machine on a particular size. I just rolled it out because it was easier, and as you can see, I'm just kind of sloppy working around this, cutting around this, because I'm just covering this piece of foil as the base of my fish. And you can cut some of this off once you get it down. Try to just get any air pockets out. Try to cover that foil so that there's no air pockets. If you do get an air pocket, all you have to do is take your razor blade, cut it open, and squish the air out. So no worries. And once you get this nice and tight, you'll understand what I'm doing in a second. Let me move that out of the way. You're just going to continue pressing and blending. Now you really only need it smooth in the front where you're going to have your face. You're going to cover the back with scales, so that part's fine. Now if you find that you have too much clay in an area, take your razor and just shave it off until you get that shape. And if you find you don't have enough clay, take that clay and transfer it over. So it's just a matter of fiddling with this until you get that perfect shape that you want for the body. And there's no right or wrong. Remember, you're doing this for yourself, so whatever you like, that's perfection. Now you can make his body short and squatty or long and skinny. Now I'm feeling That's a really nice shaped fish body. And if you're kind of saying, huh? That's cool. Don't worry about it. So this, I'm just going to take my knitting needle tool and I'm just going to define the areas where I'm going to add texture. And this back here is where I'm going to add all of my scales. And in the face here, I just want some texture. You can use anything for texture. You can use an old ball pen, will do the same thing as a knitting needle, but for some reason I grabbed the knitting needle first, and that's what I'm going to use. Now I'm just going around and making all these little tiny lines. And they're just going to add texture because I'm going to continue adding them behind each other. I just don't want the face to have a look to it that it's too sleek when I can have more texture to it. And this also hides a multitude of sins, so if you don't get things perfect, this will work over it. You can see now where I've added a little bit of texture there and how we have that difference. Now I'm going to add my scales, and I'm feeling I like these bullseye ones, and I think I want them a little bit smaller, so I'm just going to roll it out. This is where it's best to wait to totally reduce to see how small your fish is going to be. And I'm just going to pinch this so it's got a teardrop shape to it. And just slice off some scales. Now how thick you want these scales is really how thick you want your texture. I know somebody's going to ask me, how thick are you cutting these? It's all about how thick you want the texture. So you will have to play and cut a few pieces to see what you like. And now I like to start from the tail. This is going to be the tail, so I'm just going to add all of my little scales around the tail. And now in between, I'm just going to add the scales. Now you're going to find when you get into some of these sections, this doesn't fit in the middle here. Just wiggle them and wobble them. My serious terms. Just fill them in. Don't fret over this. Don't worry about it. This is supposed to be fun. Have a little fun with it. Just wiggle it the other way, wobble it the other way, so it's got a cartoony kind of fun look. That's what these fish look like anyway. And that just kind of fills in that area, so you don't have to worry about, as you can see, it doesn't match perfectly if you really study it, but it looks really cute, so have fun. Now I have all my scales on, and I'm just going to add a little trim around that top edge there. You don't have to. You don't have to do any of this stuff. You can do it however you like. I'm just giving you ideas. And this just kind of separates where the scales start and begin. And when you get to the end here, just cut it off. Blend it with your finger a bit. And now I'm going to take my, sorry about the thunderstorms going on. This is a great rainy day project. I'm just going to take my knitting needle and blend that little snake in so it looks like it's part of the clay. Kind of almost gives him a collar. Now if you happen to have had some broken beads or anything, they're really fun to stick in here as scales too. So look around your studio. If you have things that you've said, oh, I should have thrown that away and didn't want to, this is the time to tuck them in. Think about using some silly things that you've never known what to do with. And there you can see I've got the little collar around his neck. Now we've got to add some eyes because he looks kind of weird without eyes. A very small ball of clay. This may even be too big, but we're going to try it anyway. And I am just going to cut it in half. This way I have a perfect eyeball for both sides. And now I'm just going to take that and squish it. And I like to put it on a piece of paper when I squish it. Oh, we can see the red on my fingers. Actually, that's good, otherwise you probably wouldn't see it on the white clay, on the white So I need to squish them about the same size. And I didn't cut them evenly, so don't worry if you have this happen. Sometimes I like to leave my mistakes in so that you can see what to do when you make them. We all make mistakes, it's part of creating. And sometimes those are happy mistakes and other times they're oh no. So there we go, they're closer there now. Just squish them down. And he's got a little bit of bloodshot eyes because he's red. And now I'm just taking a little bit of black clay. This is probably too much, so I'm going to cut this in half again. And you'll get the feel for this as you're working. The more you do, the more you get the feel of how much do I need. So I'm just going to cut that black in half. I have a hard time seeing this, trying to not get my head in front of the camera. And once again, I'm going to make just a little ball, and we're going to squish it and put it on top. And see, it hides most of my red eye, so it's okay. It's just a fish eye. It's going to pop out anyway. And now we're just going to add them. Let me see where I want to add them. I think up here. Yes, I like them up there. Now, I like to put a little eyelid. You're just going to take a little snake and you're going to cut 2 little pieces. Sort of like an eyebrow, but I guess it's a fake eyelid. And I'm just pinching the end. And I will put that right over the eye. Oh, that one needs to be made a little bit longer. So it looks kind of like a little eyebrow with my knitting needle, and you can shape it however you want. And you can see how much different that looks. Now, I always like to put a highlight in my eye. I have a little bit of acrylic paint. You could use a little bit of white clay, but sometimes getting that tiny, teeny amount of white clay to just make a highlight in an eyeball is more work than just putting this little dot of paint on there, which just totally changes that look. Now we've got our fish started, and all we have to do is give him a mouth. To create the mouth, I've created a little log, just a little piece of clay. And I'm just going to put it directly over this piece here. And I know it looks kind of blobbish and silly, but if you take your razor to it and you cut it in the middle, you can create a mouth really easy, and then just open it. Now I just take my knitting tool. You could also use a ballpoint pen, and I just connect those little pieces by blending them into the other clay. And you can soften this with your finger, shape it however you like, but it's a really easy way to create lips and a little mouth with a face there. And you make him however you imagine to. Now he just needs some fins so he can swim. But look how cute he is already. And that wasn't very difficult, was it? Our cane that we've already reduced into our fins. And let's see the size right there? That would be perfect for the tail. So I'm just going to cut, let's see, about 3mm thick piece for each side. And I think I want some tail on top, so we're going to cut 2 more. And now I'm going to reduce it for the side fins. And this is why I don't like to reduce it too much up front, because you just don't know what size you want. And now I'm just going to cut several of those for the sides. To attach your tail, you're just going to push it right into the fish there. Take your knitting needle or an old pen and just blend that right in to one side. We're going to do the same thing to the other. And you can see I've kind of got it a little thicker here. That's actually good. Because he's going to bend out. And you can squish them up with your fingers. And I like that I have a lot of gold leaf on my hands because it's getting them all sparkly. Always good to have extra sparkle. And I'm going to create this extra fin right on top. I may be using the wrong terminology, but he's my imaginary fish, so I get to call him whatever I want. And you can just bend these in however you like. And since you're attaching wet clay to wet clay, you can see they stick beautifully. Now I just want some side fins. And we just press them in that way. See, I've got a little bend to them now, and I've got his fins, and you just want to bend them out, however makes you happy, and that's all there is to your fish. Isn't he fun? Now you just have to decide what you want to do with him. Use him as a fan pole, a picture holder, in a little aquarium, or just on your desk as company. So if you want to use him for something else, you'll have to install that part on him now. Otherwise, if you just want to keep him as company, as a little ornamental thing, you can just bake him and keep him like that. If you want to have him shiny, just glaze him. Sometimes I just like the matte look contrasting with the gold leaf. To create a hanger for your fish, you need to create something like this. So this would be the loop that goes through the top of the fish that you can hang anything off of, and this goes in the middle of the fish so that it doesn't pull straight out. If this were just a straight wire like this is, it would pull straight out, so this kind of locks it into the clay. Now to create this, you can use any type of wire, any size wire, and you're just going to take some wire, bend it back, and create a loop. And this is the size loop that you want on the top of your fish. You're then going to hold the loop with your pliers. See, the loop is in my plier. And I'm going to take that little tail and just wrap it around so that I know that this will not open up. It will stay nice and tight. And that is how I create that little locked loop. I'm just going to take a wire clipper and clip that short, and then clip a little, I'm about 2 inches to the end here. It doesn't matter if you curl this up pretty or if you make it funny looking like that. This will just fit inside of your fish and lock that clay in there so that this piece up top will not fall out. It will just totally lock it in. And the easiest way to do that is to take an X-Acto knife, cut into your fish. Now remember, I have a little piece of foil in there. And I'm going to slide this in. And then blend that clay back around it. Make sure he's in as far as you want it. And you can see how I have that nice little hanger, so I can hang him now as an ornament anywhere. And here you can see I have 3 of my little fish all finished up. The one in the center is the bullseye cane, the other 2 are the blended canes, and you can see there's not a whole lot of difference. So it just depends on what makes you happy and which way you prefer to work, but either one comes out adorable. And here's another color just for fun. I did some purple and greens and a little guy to match. Now this little guy has a little bead holding him in the bottom so that you could use him as a bead. I just drilled a hole straight through on this one. This one I put a little hook eye on it. So just different ways you can hang them or use them depending on what you want to use them for. And here's my favorite piece. This was just an old vase that I decided to put these fish in the bottom of with some resin and some rocks so that when you add your flowers to it, you have this cute little display on the bottom. Let me turn it slowly so you can see how fun this is. And rather than putting a piece on the top to attach them, I just put a little wire in the bottom. And like I said, a little bit of resin to hold them up. And see how cute. And there you can see the whole vase and how cute it looks. What a great little gift this would make with some flowers in the top. Just something fun and different. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you have lots of fun creating fish. And thanks for watching.